Okay, fan reaction time then. West Ham United 3, Burnley 2. And I am very, 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 very disappointed to see us lose that in the way that we did. I feel like West Ham were there for the taking. When we went 1-0 we deserved it. I feel like West Ham started the better for like the first 5-10 minutes, but it was very cagey. And there was that injury to Juve, wasn't there, after like 3 or 4 minutes. So nothing much really happened. But I feel like West Ham were the only team in that first 5-10 minutes trying to make things happen. But then in the rest of that first half, we were by far and away the better side. And we deserved to go 1-0 up when we did. And in that moment, when we were 1-0 up, their fans were getting very, very restless. They looked disjointed. We looked like a team. We were the better side. And for us to then go in at half-time at 1-1 was just incredibly disappointing. And looking back now, it kind of felt like the tone was set then. Because their tails were up. They're going at half-time, with a bit more buoyant and a bit more sort of like expectation for that second half. And then I do feel like in that second half, West Ham were the better side. We weren't as terrible as some people are making out. We were a little bit unfortunate in some areas. Obviously, Zian had the chance where do you remember Gaza in 96 where he was sliding and it inches away? Similar to that, but that were obviously before we got the first goal. Then we had other chances. Ugachuk, we had a long-range effort. One of their players headed away. These again in the first half. But what I'm saying is we had the chances to hopefully be 2-0 up and put the game beyond West Ham. Because I do feel like if we did go 2-0 up, West Ham wouldn't have come back from that. They'd have been dead and buried at half-time. The crowd would have been ridiculously toxic, especially after their protest today. But unfortunately for us, obviously, it wasn't to be. And like I said, West Ham came out, I feel like, after half-time and were the better side. And when they equalised in the first half, like I said, I don't feel like they deserved it. But when they went 2-1 up, I couldn't really argue really the case there. I thought that they deserved to be in the lead at that point based on the performance in that second half because they were better than us, I felt like, as I said, after half-time. My main gripe with today is how soft all 3 goals were, though. Like, we're this team that's supposed to be, built on this incredibly strong foundation at the back, and we literally were the best defensive team the Championship has ever seen. That's not an opinion, it's a fact. The stats prove that. But we just look poor at the back in too many games this season, and we don't look great up front. We have looked a bit better up front, to be fair, since Ian's come in. Obviously, another goal for him today, to be fair. Took his header really, really well. I think for me now, I think I said on a full-time show recently that I didn't expect Ian to be able to come in and be a Premier League quality forward, but I feel like he's showing, since he started being the number 1 striker, that he is a Premier League quality forward. He's our best option anyway, definitely. He's definitely our best option. But yeah, anyway, the point I was making was I feel like all 3 goals were incredibly preventable from a Burnley perspective. Every single one of them. 2 of them were Martin Dubravka's fault. Now, I'm not going to go in too hard on Martin Dubravka because he's been fantastic so far this season. He has kept us in so many games. If it wasn't for him, we lose at home to Forest. If it wasn't for him, we draw away at Wolves. He makes a big save early on against Sunderland as well, or I think that was Mayenda, wasn't it? Like, Mayenda should probably do better with that, to be fair, but still, Dubravka's got to make that save. So it's hard. It would be harsh for me to sit here and criticise Dubravka too much. However, you've got to look at the facts. That first goal, his wrists aren't strong enough, and he just parries. Sorry, not the first goal. The second goal, the first goal in the second half. His wrists just aren't strong enough, and he parries it directly into the path of Souček. Was it Souček for that second goal? I can't remember. No, Souček with the third goal. I can't remember who even scored the second goal. But anyway, he parries it and he goes straight to their player. And he just bundles it over the line. The third goal, again, it's a long-range effort. I don't know who hits a long-range effort, but he goes straight to Dubravka. Keep hold of it, man. Either keep hold of it or parry it away from the oncoming West Ham forwards. And he parries it straight into the path of the 2 forwards that are coming on. And it's just too easy. It's just too easy. Even the first goal, I feel like we are slightly unfortunate with the first goal. I feel like a lot of Burnley fans were criticising the defending for the first goal. And it is preventable. I'm not saying we defended well here and we're unlucky. I feel like it's poor defending and we're unlucky. Because we try and... Is it Somerville that crosses it or has that half-hour shot? I think it is. We try and crowd him out. The ball deflects when he hits a shot and it just falls directly into the path of Callum Wilson. Again, I do feel like that is somewhat unfortunate. But again, it's completely preventable from a Burnley perspective. So that's my main gripe with today, is how soft the goals were, especially for a team who, isn't great going forward and is supposed to be built on this defensive foundation, which we just don't seem to have in this league this season. But another one of my main gripes, and I know I've mentioned it on the podcast a few times and the full-time shows and things like that, and I think even Glenn Little mentioned it in the most recent Glenn Little podcast. I might be wrong. If he isn't, I will definitely be asking him next week. But Scott Parker's subs are so bizarre. Like in that first half, and for the majority of the match, Jadon Anthony, I like Jadon. I feel like he gets a lot of unnecessary stick online. But what I will say is I don't think he's been great for the last 2 or 3 games. But I don't think it was great again today. Whereas Loom Chowner, on the other side, was playing really well. So what does Scott Parker do when he makes his first sub? He takes Chowner off and keeps Anthony on and brings Jakob Bruun-Larsen on, who has offered literally nothing so far. Well, I think he's got 1 assist so far this season. But JBL, when you need a goal or when you're chasing a game, for me, isn't the player that you want on the pitch. I'd rather have Tuna on the pitch than JBL, personally, from what I've seen so far this season, both players. And then the other one, bringing Hannibal on, not really got an issue with that. I feel like he's done quite well recently in his substitute appearances. He's coming on and showing a lot of energy, made things happen. And again, it's his ball into the box. It's not a great ball, to be fair. It's definitely more of a goalkeeper error for our final goal that Josh Cullen scores. But again, he's making things happen. He's there. He's putting it in the box, isn't he? So I don't really have any issues with Hannibal coming on. But why is he bringing Brozier on? Like, Lyle Foster, I know Lyle Foster's been ill, so Scott Parker might come out and say something in the press in his post-match or ahead of the next game against Chelsea, which, to be fair, is the international break coming up now, isn't it? So it'll be a while away, so he probably won't mention that. But why is he bringing Brozier on when Foster is right there? And Foster did so well against Wolves, coming off the bench in the exact same scenario where you need a goal and you want somebody stretching the defenders. He's brought Brozier on, who, again, like JBL, has offered absolutely nothing so far this season. Nothing. So I call it bizarre sub syndrome. I think Scott Parker suffers from it. I really, really do. I've always questioned in-game management. I think this season it's starting to look a little bit more suspicious, especially that first sub, like I said, keeping Anthony on the pitch when he hasn't been great so far this season and taking Tuna. I know Tuna's more of an explosive player, so it may have been a little bit more fatigued than what Jadon was, or Scott Parker's probably thinking more of defensive-minded, knowing Scott Parker bringing the likes of JBL on and keeping Anthony on rather than taking a bit of a risk. So, yeah, frustrating to lose the relegation 6-pointer. And I will point out, by the way, some people have said on Twitter, that don't call it a 6-pointer, it's sensationalism. The true definition of a 6-pointer is a game between 2 teams who are close to each other in the league because it feels like you're getting 6 points if you win the game because the other team's getting 0. It's literally the exact definition today. We were 3 points off each other and now they're level with us. We're only out of the relegation zone on goal difference thanks to Josh Cullen. So the literal definition of 6-pointer was today's game. So if you've got an issue with it, you need to take it up with the Oxford Dictionary. But yeah, frustrated to lose today's game. And yeah, it's we're not dead, we're not buried. I've seen a few people saying, I hate to be that guy, that's looking like us down. Doesn't look great at the minute. But nobody's relegated in November unless you have 2 points. And I need to stop using that anecdote because I've used it like 4 or 5 times now over the last few shows and podcasts and videos. But yeah, international break, regroup, and then who is it next? Oh, it's only Chelsea.